With this video, I hope to explain the various pieces of the hardware that can be used for mobile journalism reporting, mobile journalism assignments, or MOJO assignments, or MOJO reporting. So starting over here on the left side, and then we'll move over to the right side. Some of the equipment includes the two LED lights that can be attached onto tripods, onto cameras, or cradles with these kinds of hot shoe adapters. Next to that, we have a very basic selfie stick and a mobile phone adapter or mobile phone cradle, which is right here. We also have on this part right here, this is a cradle with a screw mount and a hot shoe adapter that can be used for adding and connecting a light or microphone onto a mobile phone. We also have an iPhone 7 series. Just below it here, we have a Sennheiser shotgun microphone that has a mini plug and it can be attached on the hot shoe with this little mount right here. Just to the right of that, we have this larger contraption. This is a DJI Osmo stabilizer or gimbal, and it can be used with a mobile phone. That's why it's got this smaller little mounting area right here. This is a Shure handheld microphone that connects with an XLR cable on the bottom. This is an XLR cable that we will need to find some way to connect to the mobile phone. And to do that, we have this Saramonic Smart Rig Plus, and that it connects several external microphones to a mobile phone by using either XLR plugs in the top or mini jack plugs in the top as well. We also have the option of having headphones coming out so we can listen to what it is that we're recording. Also, we have a variety of connectors that are often used and necessary when connecting to mobile phones, different dongles, different connectors, different adapters. Down the bottom here, we have what's called a phonographer mobile phone cradle that can help you shoot more stable video and allows you to use some special lenses and graduated filters. So these are some of the lenses right here that I'm going to tell you about. We also have something called graduated filters. Also on the top, we have two more small clip-on lenses that you can put onto mobile phones. And finally, a wired headphones with earbuds. We also, of course, have the wired headphones that go over the ear, so you can use either one of those, and I suggest that you use headphones all the time when you're recording audio and video. Okay, so that's some of the equipment that we have here, and now I'm going to clear up and basically try to show you each of these components step by step. I'm sure all of you probably know what this is, a mobile phone, and that's what we're going to use to work with a lot of this gear that I've assembled for you. The best thing to recommend is when you're shooting video, first of all, depending on what you're shooting, but you're probably mostly going to want to shoot in the horizontal format like this, and usually on a 2:3 or 16:9 or a 3:4 ratio. It depends on the assignment that you'd be doing. Let's say, for example, if you will be doing a social media video, then you might be shooting or later editing in this square format. It's usually best not to just hand hold the camera and try to shoot by hand holding it. You want to try to keep your video as stable as possible. So you can either use a tripod, and there are some of these selfie stick tripods. The selfie stick we have here is not a tripod, but it does, of course, extend out, as you can see here. So we can extend our camera further out if we want. But the main purpose behind this is to make sure that we're holding the camera really as stable and as steady as possible with a mobile phone. To go with this tripod, of course, you're going to need this small adapter. This is the holder for the mobile phone. So let's do this first. Let's screw this onto the top, onto the little screw right here. Make sure that it's very, very tight. We don't want anything to be loose or something to fall off. All right, quite tight. And then we'll mount the mobile phone in here. Let's just go ahead and see how it looks with the video. All right, so now we can go ahead and shoot like this. Of course, you want to maybe hold it as steady as possible with one hand or with two hands. You can start your video by, of course, tapping, and then it's probably best to just hand hold as much as you can like this. Now, one drawback from just shooting like this is we're not really going to get the best audio because all we're relying on is the internal microphone that's built with the mobile device. And those internal microphones are really not the best way for us to record any kind of sound, especially if we're going to be doing any kind of interviewing. So let's add a few more contraptions onto here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a simple shotgun microphone, which is this right here. A few more things we're going to need to make this work properly is I'm going to need, first of all, this device right here. This device allows us to plug in a microphone with a mini jack that only has two little components. So this will not allow us to connect directly into the mobile phone. We'll actually need to bypass it through here, because as you can see on this connector, there are these three connectors that we will need to get into the mobile phone. Otherwise, we will not be recording audio, or at least stereo. Now, to get into the mobile phone, in the case of the iPhone 7, we're going to need this kind of lightning connector right here. So we are going to take this component with the three connectors, put it in the bottom in here, and then this will go into the bottom of the phone, connected like that. Next, we're going to take this connector and put it into the input on what's called the microphone, which we can see right here. That's connected in. And ideally, if you wanted to, we should also take a pair of headphones, and we can take our headphones and then connect them onto the audio out part. So the audio that's coming in here will go into the phone and also will come out of the headphones. And of course, any audio when we play back later on will also come into the headphones for us. Now, there's just one problem. How do we get this connected to our mobile device without us having to hand hold it? So I'm going to bring another component, which is this bracket right here. And we're going to attach this bracket in between the mobile phone and the selfie stick. And then the microphone will be detached on this hot shoe right here. So first what we can do, let's just go ahead and slide this mobile phone into the hot shoe. And then we will tighten it down by turning this knob right here. All right? So that's how we've got that attached. Now we've got to get this part attached to the mobile phone and the selfie stick. To do that, let me take the phone back out of its cradle. I'm going to remove this top component again, or this cradle. I'm now going to screw this part into the bottom of this one right here. So we can just screw that on there. So that's nice and tight, right? Nice and tight. And then we'll take the cradle and then we'll attach that back on here again. And we can actually move the microphone closer, further away if we want. I usually want to give it a little bit of space away from the phone, because if we have to change some settings in the phone, we don't want to have to make too much noise. Okay. Let me change just one thing here. Tighten this up. We want to make sure that our cradle, so we can see our phone this way, and our microphone is pointed in the opposite direction. Okay. Now let's take the phone, put it back in the cradle. All right, now we've got the setup. Let me move it over just a little bit. It's a bit too close to the microphone. We want to make sure we're not damaging any of our connectors here. Now, unfortunately, we do have lots of cables kind of hanging here. One thing you do have to be careful about is that as you are filming, if this starts moving around, a lot of that movement of the cables will cause a static discharge, and you'll hear that as a scratchy noise or sound in your recording. So the best thing to do is, again, you will have to hold this camera up like this and try to be as steady as possible. If necessary, you might want to find a way to attach it or tape it so there's not too much movement of the cables. Last thing to do to make sure that we're getting sound into the device, we have to, of course, turn on the small microphone, which is right here. You flip that over, and now we should be getting audio into the camera. Just to let you know, let's turn this off again, and I'll remove this from here. This does require a battery. Microphone does require a battery. It's added by opening up this little compartment on the bottom, and that is a AAA battery that you would put inside. When you turn it on, you'll notice that a little red light flashes. If that light flashes, that means you are getting some power in. Of course, you want to double check everything on your mobile device, do a test recording, and listen back to make sure that you do have good audio that is coming in. Okay, so that's a pretty simple setup for using a selfie stick as a way to stabilize what you're shooting, to use an external microphone, and to use various different connectors, dongles, and mounts. So we've got a very easy setup here. Let's add another level of complexity, so to say. We now want to use our mobile device either to record an audio interview. Therefore, we'll use a handheld microphone, such as this Shure handheld microphone. And we're also going to use this setup with the handheld microphone to record, let's say, a video interview. Therefore, we're going to have two different types of setups using this microphone. One where we don't need to record video, and one where we do need to record video. So let's go with this simple setup first. We're just going to do an audio interview. Let me just pick out an app here real quick. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to use this one right here to record an audio interview. This is a handheld microphone with an XLR plug on the bottom. So we're going to need an XLR cable. Here we have the XLR cable. Now, to get from here to the XLR cable and into the mobile device, we're going to need to use two things. One is the Saramonic Smart Rig Plus, and this device can be used, as you can see here, for either for mobile phones or for DSLR cameras. So in this case, we're just going to be using it for mobile phones as a mobile journalist. So we're going to have this top switch over to the right, pointing towards the mobile phone. So we can move from the microphone XLR cable into the smart rig, and then we've got to get from the smart rig into the mobile phone. That requires one more plug, or one more connector, adapter, and that's this small one that will take us into the bottom in the lightning connector. Okay, so before I do the connection, let me just explain some things about this smart rig. Let's look over this first. So the smart rig on the top has two XLR microphone plugins and also two 1/8" or mini jack plugins. So we have a 1 and a number 2, or 1 and 2. And we also have either a stereo or a mono input. Let's leave it to the right on the S part, so we're getting stereo in and stereo back out. We also have two dials here that control the outgoing volume in through the cable. So just to start, let's just leave it about halfway. We're going to use, let's say, part number 2, so we're just going to worry about this knob right here. Two other switches here. As I mentioned, we can use this smart rig either to provide some kind of audio to a DSLR camera or to a mobile device, which could be a tablet, or in our case, we're going to use the mobile phone. So we'll leave that switch over this way. The bottom switch is our on-off switch. If we just want to turn it on, we go to the left. If we want to provide something that's called phantom power, then we're going to go to the right. Now, our microphone, unfortunately, this one does not require phantom power, so we don't need to provide any kind of additional power to it, so we'll just keep it over to the left. We have on the bottom, we have a small plug that is for audio out. So if we want to, we can use some headphones as well, so we can listen to our playback later on. And of course, this is the cable that will go into our mobile device through this dongle or through this adapter right here. The Saramonic Preamp Smart Rig Plus does require its own power source. So if you flip open on the back here, you'll see this is a 9-volt battery. So you do need to provide your own battery. You can pop that out with this little thing right here. Change the battery, put a new one in, and let's seal the back again. And you also provided this Velcro strap, which is very convenient because you don't want to have to carry this around. So what you could do, if you're, for example, going to use a selfie stick, which we'll show you in a little while, we can actually attach it to the selfie stick so you don't have to carry it. Or you can attach it to a tripod or something else. Let's not worry about the selfie stick now. So let's put some of the connections together, plug it into the mobile device, and we can just do a sample recording of audio. So we'll start with plugging this into here. This will go into the bottom of the iPhone 7. Now, of course, understand if you have a different iPhone model, older model, or if you have another kind of mobile phone, then you're going to have to try get a different connector that's going to go into your device. Now we'll take the XLR cable. First we'll plug this into the bottom of the handheld mic. That's connected. And then we can connect this into the top of the smart rig. Wait for it to click. So now we should be ready to go. Now we've got the mic connected to our preamplifier, ceramic preamplifier. That's now going to go into our phone. Last thing we can do, we can connect the headphones into the bottom, and then we can listen to our playback. Now, one thing that's rather unfortunate, the way mobile phones are going to work with this, is that as we are recording, as we start recording, we push the record button, we will not be able to hear the audio that is being recorded through our headphones. But once we stop our recording and we hit play here, then we can hear playing back what the sound sounds like. So first we need to turn on our smart rig. We can put our headphones in our ears. We can hit record. Now it'll start recording, and you might be able to see that there are some sound waves that are being recorded on this mobile app. Once we're done recording, of course, as I mentioned, while we're recording, unfortunately, you won't be able to hear the sound when you're using the mobile device or mobile phone option. If you were to use this setup with a DSLR camera, that means you would turn the switch to the other side, then you will be able to hear the audio that is coming through the microphone in the headphones. But it doesn't work the same way with the mobile device. Once you've done the recording, you can hit pause, you can hit done, save that file. If you want to, you can play it back, and this time when you play it back, you will be able to hear it in the headphones as long as the device is still turned on. All right, so that was just using this kind of setup, handheld microphone, XLR cable, through the preamplifier and into the device. It's much better to use these kinds of microphones to do audio recordings rather than the built-in microphone on your mobile device. Next, let's work with video. So let's say we now want to actually shoot a video with this kind of setup again. Now we would probably want to bring in, as I mentioned before, selfie stick and our adapter or our cradle. We can put this onto the selfie stick. Mobile device into the cradle. Let's just move our headphones out of the way for the moment. And now if we wanted to, we'd actually take this connect it onto our selfie stick. So now our hands are free. Whoops, let's try that again. Okay, our hands are free. So I've got one hand that we can start it with. Now we'll probably just have to unspool a little bit more of this. Connect this into the top. Now you can have your headphones in again if you'd like. Connected through the preamplifier. Turn it on. Set it about mid-range. We can hit start on our video, record our interview, holding the microphone at the same time as we're interviewing the person, hopefully as steady as possible. Once we're done, hit the stop button, and if you want, you can then play it back to listen to it again. All right, so that is how to use the Saramonic preamplifier with a handheld XLR microphone, which will give you much better audio quality than just using the microphone that's directly in the mobile phone. So next, let's play around with some of these additional lenses that we can add to the mobile device, and you can use them both in photo mode and in video mode. Now let's start with these two that we have here. These are basically just little clip-on lenses. And in one of them, this one right here, is a wide-angle lens and macro lens. That means we can look at things very, very closely. And the other one, this one right here, this is a fisheye lens, 180-degree fisheye lens. So they work like this, pretty straightforward and pretty simple. Let's just turn it to camera mode first. You slip it on here, and you just clip it over the camera lens, and that's how it works. Now, as you can see, we've got some serious vignetting on the two sides right here. It's not necessarily very ideal. So this is, of course, how it was with it on. This is with it off again. So let me just put it back on there again so you can have a better view of what it looks like. So it doesn't really look very ideal, but it does act as a macro lens. That means we can get very, very close to some items, and it's still in focus, as you can see here. So that is in photo mode. We can now change it to video mode. The vignetting is not quite as bad, but it's still, you can kind of see it a little bit on the edges there. But then we can get in very, very close, again with this macro wide angle lens. We can shoot something up really, really close. So this is what the video would look like. As you can see there, it says fisheye. You can see that pretty clearly. This is working with this lens in the macro mode. Let me hit pause, and I'll show you a video again. Now I'm going to do it not in with the macro lens, so let's go ahead and hit record. So we can kind of see it, but once we get in too close, as you can see, the words fisheye immediately go out of focus. So the macro lens really helps us get close to items. And let me show you again what it is when we put it on. Let me attach it back on there for you. Okay, so with the lens, hit record again, and now let's get real close to this lens again. You can see that it says fisheye in focus. Okay, so that's using the fisheye. I'm sorry, that's using the wide angle or macro lens. Now if we use the fisheye lens, we put that on, cover it over the camera lens, so it kind of pops into place there. Now we really have really strong vignetting on both sides. And if I go to photo mode, you can see it's basically just looks like a peephole, like as if you're looking out of a hotel room or something like that. Video mode, also it's very fisheye, it's 180 degrees. I can play around with this. I'm going to give you some, I'll shoot it outside a little bit later on to let you know the variations or the differences. So that is working with these two types of clip-on lenses in photo and in video mode. Now, as I said again, you get a lot of really bad vignetting on the outside, on the edges, so those aren't necessarily ideal if you want to shoot either macro or if you want to shoot 180 degrees fisheye. So we've got another option. Let me put these to the side. We've got these lenses. That work with this cradle, the phonographer cradle. And we've got three different types of lenses here that we can use for the mobile phone in either photo or in video mode. Let's just go ahead and pop the lens caps off these. This is a macro lens. Again, that's for looking at things very close up in detail. This is a wide angle lens, so it broadens our view a little bit more. And this one right here is the fisheye lens. That's 150 degrees. Now, to be able to use these three lenses on the mobile device, we actually have to use this cradle at the same time. Let me show you briefly what the cradle looks like and how it works. It has a strap here. It's got this small corner that loosens up here. And we can move this up and down, and we can move this little eyepiece left and right. I'll show you why we're going to do that in a moment. It has a nifty little handle right here that we can use to hold onto the camera to make it much more stable. And of course, the back part, this is where we're going to put the phone into the cradle. And then we're going to decide which of these lenses to use to attach on here later on. If you are going to use this device, it's best to take the mobile phone out of its actual case if you have an additional case, because you need to make sure that that lens is pretty close, the camera lens is actually pretty close to these lenses as well. So let's put this camera in, or this mobile phone into our cradle. Here's our two lenses. This lens right here is the one that's the main one that's going to be used. Open that up, drop it in there. Try to make sure that we're kind of getting this outer lens somewhere close to where we can move this up. So it's pretty much right in the center. We can move it left and right as necessary. Center it as best as we can. And once it's centered in there, then we tighten up this so it can no longer be moved around. So it's as tight as it can go. A few other things that we do have on this cradle, which are actually very convenient, is we do have a hot shoe. So if you want to, you could actually play around with some more devices. You could put a microphone on top. We could also decide to maybe put one of these lights on top. So we've got lots of different choices of additional things to add. Now, of course, as you can see, if I add this on top and then I tighten this down, it does make this whole system quite a bit heavier. But again, it's good to have the hot shoe option on there so that we can always play around with some more choices. Peripherals, so to say. And we also have, on the bottom, some screw-in places here. So again, if I want more stability, if I wanted to, I could actually attach a selfie stick onto the bottom of here. So I can hold it this way, and I can hold it there. So I've got two places to hold this device at the same time. All right, this makes it very stable. We'll just leave this off for now. And I'll show you how to work with these lenses. All right. So these lenses to use. First of all, let's use the macro lens. Let's take this back cap off. This lens has a small thread right here on the outside of the back part. Please make sure you don't touch here, or if you do, just use a small cloth to wipe it down to get any dust or fingerprints off. That is then screwed directly onto here. All right, so we've now changed our regular lens into a macro lens. Let's turn the camera on. And as you can see here, we don't have the vignetting as bad as it used to be with these other small clip-on lenses. Remember, these small clip-on lenses had some very, very bad vignetting. But we're not going to use those now. Now we're using the screw-on lens, which is much better. Especially if we go to video mode, we definitely don't have that kind of vignetting anymore. And as before, this macro lens really allows us to get extremely, extremely close to things. I'll just show you again. Let me just make a sample video. So we can get very, very close to items without it going out of focus. As you can see, we can get super, super close here. That's all still in focus, as you can see all the words there. Let me show you again what that would look like without this lens. Let's take this macro lens off. And now if I get very, very close without the macro lens, it automatically goes very, very quickly out of focus, as you can see. All right? So, if we want to use the other lenses, the fisheye lens or the wide angle, you need the macro lens already attached. Now let's take our macro lens first. I'm sorry, our wide angle lens. That's this one right here. This is called a wide angle lens. Now there's also a thread right here. Again, don't touch there or there if possible. And on the inside of this macro lens, there's also a thread. So this then gets screwed onto here. So you have two lenses that are being screwed together. Now we have a wide angle lens. I'll make some recordings somewhere else so you can see how it works. Very little vignetting along the outsides. You remember again with these small lenses we had very, very bad vignetting, but we've got no real vignetting now. That means the dark edges. You can take this one off, the wide angle, and now we can attach our fisheye lens and make sure that both sides are clean. Get the threading just right. There we go. And now we've got a fisheye lens. And again, you can see there's no vignetting at all around the edges here, which is really, really great to see. Once we go to photo mode, then we have just a little bit on the edges. You can see some darkness on just a little bit on the edges here in the corners. But in video mode, at 150 degrees, we see no vignetting around the outside. Okay. So what we've done now is we've added a variety of different layers of lenses. The macro lens on the bottom, we do have the wide angle lens, and then we do have the fisheye lens. And there's one more thing that comes with this set, and these are called graduated filters, along with this adapter. So here's what these are being used for right here, these graduated filters. Let's say you're shooting a scene where it's blue sky above and cityscape on the bottom. And let's say the cityscape is much darker than the blue sky. So you have an imbalance in the exposure ratio between the top, the sky part, and the city part. We can use this graduated filter that goes from dark blue to nothing on the top to the bottom as a way to balance out the exposure from the top half of the picture or the video and the lower half of the video. That means what we're doing is we want to make sure that our sky doesn't turn white as long as our city is still in its correct exposure, or we want to make sure that our city doesn't turn too dark if our sky is in good exposure. So we can use this to make sure that our exposure is pretty close to accurate on both the sky and the city. Let me take this filter off. I'll take off the fisheye. I'll just put on the wide angle. Then you will take this filter holder, and again it has this thread right here. That needs to now be screwed onto the top of this lens. Again, we got to work it a little bit until we get the threads just right, which we have here. Once it's on tight, now this part can revolve around, as you can see, which is great. This is exactly what we need. Then we take these filters out of the wrappers. And there's small ridges that you just slide it in here, like this. And you can adjust further up or further down depending on where you're going to have your horizon line in the sky. Let's say you're going to have a horizon line, so you're going to have lots of the city in the bottom and only a little bit of sky on top. You'd probably want to move the filter up a little bit. So if you have a little bit of sky and more city, maybe the darker part is down here and the lighter part is up here. But let's say you have more sky and just a little bit of the city, or let's say you're shooting something on the beach where you have a lot of sky and a little bit of the beach. You can move this graduated filter to the other side. Right, so that's for blue skies. Now, if you want to use a graduated filter, if it's not just blue skies, if you just want to make it more what's called a neutral density, then you can use this filter right here, which is, again, is a graduated filter, but that is basically just a variation from a dark to a light. So this could work as well. Probably this will work for almost all scenes if you have something very bright on the bottom and something, or it's very dark on the bottom and very bright on the top, or if it's the other way around, very bright on the bottom and very dark on the top. The darker graduated filter would probably work much better than the blue graduated filter. All right, so I'm going to shoot a few things with these various lenses and with these various graduated filters in both photo and video to give you an idea of what the various functions and the different setups would work. Next, I'll briefly show you how to use some of these LED light sources. They actually are quite heavy because they do have, as you can see, very large batteries that are connected on the back, quite large batteries. Means they last a long time, but that makes them a bit heavier than normal. This also has, as you can see, a very large battery connected onto the back. Now, these can be, again, connected onto different holders, different brackets with the hot shoe. So you can either put those on some kind of a tripod or a monopod, or, as I already showed you before, we can connect it onto this holder right here for a mobile phone. So you can put this directly into this hot shoe right here, for example. Slide it in there. Make sure that you twist this and tighten it down. Otherwise, it'll easily fall off and probably break quite easily. So that's it attached onto the hot shoe. We also have this bracket that I showed you before, where we have this connected onto the selfie stick, and then that's connected onto the bracket that holds the mobile phone. So we can slide this onto this hot shoe right here. Again, make sure that it is tightened down. And then you can connect it to a selfie stick and use it this way. Again, most importantly, keep in mind that those are quite heavy. So if you're going to be walking around the entire time, hand holding that, I'm sure you're going to find out very, very quickly that it's probably more than you're going to want to carry around all of the time. All right, so here's how these two devices work. Put this one to the side first. This one's a bit more simple. On-off switch is over here. Push in the little red or little green button, flip it up. Our power is now turned on. As you can see, these lights just came on here. These are barn doors, so you can open up these barn doors. The light is coming out. There's a couple of other things that you can flip up and down. So this is an LED light, as you can see. There are different types of filters. So right now, if I just shine the light, it just kind of spreads everywhere quite evenly. If I flip this one down, it now concentrates that light into one more specific, really, really tight beam. Right, so one really, really tight area. You can see the difference. That's more wide. This is more tight. And I can also flip this one down, and this is called a diffuser. And it now makes a more soft, balanced light everywhere, rather than in one very, very sharp area. So again, this is a diffuser. Let's flip that up. That's normal. And that is just controlled light in one direction. And if you want to, you can actually even use these barn doors to concentrate the light even just a little bit more if you want more of a really, really small beam of light pointing down on something. All right, so you can use those doors to control that light even more. You also have a knob here on the side that controls the intensity, the brightness of the light. So let me just leave it completely open as it is. And if I turn it, as you can see, the light will go down. And I'll turn it back on again. Let me put this intensity sharp beam. So it's very controlled light in one direction. Now I can turn the intensity of that light down considerably. All right. So that's this one LED light source. Let's turn that back off. Here's our other LED light source. It also has a diffuser on the front, just as this one had the diffuser. This one is a diffuser that you can unscrew the top part and unscrew the bottom part to remove the diffuser if you'd like. So we can take it off this way. And if you just want to use the light as it is without the diffuser, you would just have to screw this back in the bottom, or you can actually screw it on the side, so you can have a vertical light, or you can have the horizontal light. Completely, either way is up to you. Let's go and put this back in the bottom. And this, what's good about this light is that down here, this is something that's called a ball head. So you can loosen that up, and you can point this light in many different directions. Whereas this one is pretty much just going up and down, and that's about it. This one you can have in many, many different directions. And then once you decide what direction or where you want it to shoot, then you just have to tighten up the ball head again. Okay. Here are the controls for this lamp. First of all, here is the on-off switch. Once you turn it on, as you can see, we have it now turned on. And there's two more knobs over here on the side. Let me just slowly shift this over, and you might be able to see that there are quite a few of these LED lights on here. Right? There's quite a few of them on here. Half of the LED lights are blue, and half of the LED lights are more yellowish. So these are the more yellow lights, as you can see. And let me switch it on the other side. These are the more blue lights. All right, there's yellow and blue lights. Now the yellow and blue lights can be used to help control the light that's in a room. For example, if you're outside and it's pretty balanced light, you probably want to use half yellow, half blue. That's pretty neutral as it is. Half yellow, half blue. If you're in a room that has lots of what are called incandescent light bulbs, that means light bulbs that are the screw-in kind, the old ones, or even some candles, those types of things, then you probably want to turn off the blue more, and you just want to go with more yellow so that you can actually create more of a balanced light when you work with the white balance in your camera, whether it be a still camera or a video camera. And if you're in a room that has more bluish light, for example, the tungsten, well, tungsten is a bit more green, but if you have other types of light, then you'd want to change it from the yellow light bulbs, and you probably want to change it more to the blue light. Okay, so you have more blue light now, and then you can balance that out as well with the white balance on your camera. Okay, so this one is a bit more flexible, as you can see, with intensity and with different types of white balance. If you have more yellowish light, or orange light in a room, or more of a blue light in a room. It's less flexible when it comes to what this one can do. That means you have more options with focusing the light in one particular direction by using the barn doors, or using one of the other little flip down filters that allows you to focus and concentrate the light more, or allows you to diffuse it more. Okay, and that is the two external LED light sources that you can use. The next piece of hardware that I'll show you is probably the most fun device to use, but it can also often be the most complicated and most difficult one to use. And so I would recommend that you do try this out a little bit more and play around a little bit more before you actually start shooting something live. And that is this device right here. This is the DJI Osmo 2 mobile phone gimbal or stabilizer. And we will use the mobile phone with that. So I'm just going to use it in a very kind of basic way to start off with. If you just want to shoot some simple, very, very stable, good-looking video, and you're not really too concerned about the audio, you're just going to use your mobile device to shoot some B-roll footage with some ambient or natural sound. So let's just first of all have a look at this gimbal or the stabilizer. Right now, of course, it's turned off. That's why it's rather floppy in some ways. This is where we're going to attach the mobile phone in just a few minutes. There are a few buttons and functions that I'll show you here. It does need to be recharged, so you do need to recharge it from time to time. I'm sure you will notice that once it starts decharging, it won't work as well. And you'll also see that your lights here, these little LED lights, will slowly go down further and further and further as your charge runs down. There's the on-off switch. This is a movement toggle, which I'll show you how to use. And then there's this button and this button that you can use as well, but there you will need to download and install the DJI Osmo app onto your mobile device. So this button and this button will not work without the app. So I'm just going to use these two buttons to start off with, primarily this one, because I won't be using the app. It's not installed or downloaded on this mobile device. Of course, you can put it on your own if you really want to use this zooming in and zooming out. And this is your start-stop button, which you can just as well do on your mobile device. So first of all, let's take the case off the phone, because we want to make sure that it fits snugly into our little cradle right here. The first thing we need to do is we need to balance the phone on this cradle or on this device to make sure that when it works on its own, that everything will be horizontal and correct in our video. Otherwise, we could have a lopsided video, either left or right. So once you've dropped your phone into the device and you've pushed it as close as possible to this edge as you can, the next thing you're going to want to do is you want to try to balance this before you turn the device on. So you're going to turn it standing straight up. It's not going to be turned on yet. And you just kind of let it sit on its own. And as you can see right now, this is kind of pushed down at an angle. That means this side of the phone is heavier, or this side of the gimbal is heavier than this side. So we want to try to balance it out so when it rests on its own without being turned on, it'll look something like this. To do that, we unscrew this arm part right here. So let's unlock that. And we just move this out until the phone sits rather balanced completely on its own. So now it's not too heavy on this side and not too heavy on that side. And of course, the reason we have this option because there are different types of phones that could possibly fit into this gimbal. Some of the smaller iPhones or larger iPhones could be heavier on this side or heavier on this side. So by moving this arm back and forth and by changing the weight balance, you can make sure that your particular phone is balanced just right. And I'll show you in a moment why that's going to be important, because we'll need to make some changes again when we add some external devices, for example, an external microphone. Once it's balanced, you tighten this up. No way for this to move in and out. Then you hold the on-off button right here. Hold it for just a few seconds. There we go. It's flipped and turned for itself. So now the device is completely in control of keeping this mobile phone horizontally stable. As you can see, if I move it up or down, the phone is constantly stable. I move it left or right, it slowly turns this way, it slowly turns that way. So now we can use this device to record all kinds of really stable shots and scenes. I'll show you more in just a moment. As I mentioned, this button is not active for us. This switch on the side, the wide and telephoto, is not active for us, but this little toggle right here is active for us. So I can move it right, then the phone turns right. I can move it left, and the phone then turns left. I can push it up, and the phone will look up, will tilt upwards. I can pull it down, and the phone will tilt downwards. So that allows us, while we're shooting, to keep it stable horizontally and vertically stable, and also to do some changes by moving left and by moving right. Or if you want to tilt it up towards the sky, you can tilt it up towards the sky, or you can tilt the camera downwards towards the ground. All right? To turn it off, you just push the M button right here. A few seconds. As you can see, it turns all loose, and now the device has powered itself down. Now, let's take this one step further. I'm going to have to remove the camera again from here. because now I want to add something else. Currently, if I'm just shooting it without any kind of external microphone, which is fine, we're going to be recording sound from everywhere around. So that's lots of ambient and natural sound. But let's say we want more specific sound to be captured from one direction, or if we're doing an interview with someone, that means we're going to have to add an external microphone. Let's say in this case, we want to add the shotgun microphone with the gimbal. So we're going to record this way and capture sound from that direction while we're recording with the mobile device at the same time. A couple of other items we're going to need. These three things right here. So again, we're going to need to get from this device, microphone, into the mobile phone. The main connector to get into the mobile phone from the lightning connector is right here. I'll go into the bottom of the mobile phone. Now I can't just plug this directly into here. Yes, it would fit, but the problem is we've only got two connectors, two metal connectors. So if we were to put that on, we're not going to get sound from this into the phone. So we're going to need this 3 connector. We plug that into the microphone part, snaps, and that into the bottom of this connector. So yeah, we do have multiple connectors now, and of course if you wanted to, you could again add later on some headphones that will go into there if you want to listen to your playback of your audio after you've recorded. Alright, the next thing to do is now we need to get the microphone somewhat attached to this gimbal, and that's where we'll use this bracket. First we'll attach the microphone onto the bracket as we've done before. Make sure it's tightened up. Next we'll attach the bracket to the gimbal, which we can do in the bottom of the handle right here. There's a little slot we can attach this microphone onto. So let's screw that in the bottom. It's a little bit tricky, but we should be able to get it in there. There we are. Take it a little bit closer to the handle. Maybe not too close, because we do need to get our hand in there. All right. So now we've got our device that we're going to soon put in here. We've got our gimbal, stabilizer, connected to the bracket and the microphone. Now here comes the tricky part. As you'll notice, it just so happens that the mobile phone, the iPhone, the connector is exactly right there where we wanted to push the phone up to the side to balance it. But we can't do that now because now we've got this connector cable in there. We're going to do the best we can. We're still going to put it in here. Squeeze it in there just tight to the edge, as tight as you can get it to the edge. Now we have to balance it again. So now you can see the phone is really, really heavily leaning downwards. We need to open up this arm, move it all the way over to the right, as far over that way as you can. Tighten it up. It's not going to be perfectly balanced, but it's going to be better as before. Push the M button. Let the device turn on, and there we are. Now again, we have it quite balanced. Turn on our microphone. Let's start our video recording. And as you can see, we've got a recorder, so we've got something that we're recording now. Balanced as it goes left and right. We can record now. We can move left. We can move right. We can aim the camera up. We can aim the camera down. And the entire time we are recording audio through this microphone. One thing, as I mentioned before, you do have to be careful about is that as this cable bumps around and moves around, there's going to be little static discharges. So maybe some way you're going to want to keep the cable further away from this microphone, and so it doesn't bounce into too many things as you're working with it left and right and up and down. All right, that's it. M button, hold it, turns off. It's going to get limp, and we're done with the recording. turn off your microphone, turn off your camera, slowly disassemble everything again. Let's take the device out of the cradle first. So we take the pressure off these cables. Let's remove our microphone. Let's remove the bracket. We can move the arm back over again so that it all collapses together nice and neat. Unplug all of our cables. And now we've got all the components separated again.